I'm not going to talk much about the trends in shifts in content consumption. I think it's quite obvious we wouldn't be here at Mobile World Congress if we weren't aware of those big shifts and wanting to learn more. I think for our panel, what's more interesting, we all come from basically somewhat traditional businesses. I come out of McCann, one of the oldest advertising agencies in the world. We've done quite well in very structured, formatted content, TVCs, print, etc. So obviously we've had to react and shift and grow and evolve quite rapidly as this trend towards mobile media consumption has gained steam. Of course, we have CNN and Getty. We have L'Oreal and Sony. So each of us has had to deal with this phenomenon in very different ways. So before we get into the first question, I thought I'd ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and why this topic, why you agreed to come talk about this topic.
My name's Alex Wellen. I'm the Chief Product Officer for CNN. And look, any opportunity where I can be on a panel and learn more about the challenges that are ahead and to share in trying to find those solutions, I think is really what's appealing to us. We have some exciting challenges ahead. We have some leadership in this space, but that's exactly the time to double down and dig deep and try to find ways to address this mobile phenomenon and the ways that people connect with CNN.
Hi, I'm Vince Bannon. I'm VP of Strategic Partnerships and Getty Evangelist. And really the way we communicate right now is we communicate with mobilely. And if my wife is sending pictures of my children and my dogs, as I speak right now, I'm doing selfies of my panel right now to say, this is not a good time to call. Why am I doing this? It's because really, literally, this is what the world we're in right now. We're in the world of screens. And as we are here in Barcelona, where the language is Spanish, and there's so many different languages around the world, the easiest way to communicate, well, as you say, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Hi, I'm Esohe Omoruyi. I'm the Vice President of Digital Innovation and Services for L'Oréal Paris Worldwide. Why I'm here, it's, reinforced what Alex said. We are all part of this industry. We have to drive it forward, come together, figure out the solutions based on the need state. And that's what I feel conferences, summits like this enable us to do. So that's the primary reason. The second reason, I live in Paris and the weather sucks, so we're in Barcelona. No, just kidding.
David?
Hi everyone, I'm David Chapon. I'm in charge of digital within Sony Mobile at a global level. So that basically includes all digital marketing, but also all digital channels. So from corporate websites, .com to e-commerce, apps, CRM, and many things like that. So obviously, speaking about mobile, for me, it's like my daily business. So as a manufacturer, so it does make really lots of sense to be here on the panel today.
Excellent. So before we get into a little housekeeping, we will take questions. Obviously, please go to themix.com to submit your questions, and we'll do our best to address them. We'll kind of go free form and decide if we address them in the middle of our conversation or towards the end. So let's get into the first question. So clearly, we're all dealing with this phenomenon, this dramatic shift towards mobile media consumption. Can each of you talk a little bit about what the trends are in your industry? What's happening in your industry that's either precipitated or driven this shift, or how your industry is reacting to it? Would you like to start off, Alex?
Sure. There's a lot to take in that question, right? I mean, we are under severe disruption, and that creates all kinds of opportunity for brands alike. I think if I were to pick one thing, and there are lots of things that you could pick, I would look at the way the ecosystem has changed around what we call off-channel or off-platform. So the digital world looks a lot different than it did a year ago. There's Snapchat, Discover, Facebook Instant Articles, Google Newsstand has momentum, Line, WeChat, all kinds of chat bots and experiences inside of all of these, messaging or social platforms. And for someone like CNN, who has been a network that you tune into or go to their core website, that creates an entirely new ecosystem. And I would say that it doesn't keep me up at night. It's more of that it's a false choice to say it's one or the other. For us, being a destination is critical. And there are times when something happens in the world or that you need to get updated on the news, and there is exactly a place that you can go. But it is critical for us also to meet the customer where they are, to meet the audience where they are. And there will be some people on Snapchat, on Facebook, online, that will only engage in our brand on those platforms. They will never come in contact with CNN otherwise. So for us, that's the real excitement, is to look at what it means to play on those platforms.
Esohe, can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the world of beauty and beyond?
Specifically for L'Oréal Paris, which is the largest manufacturer of cosmetics for women and men, a lot of what we're dealing with now in this new advent of mobile is really around, again, similar to what Alex said, the connection with the consumer, fishing where they are, as we say, in terms of marketing speak, but also providing meaningful value to them, not just pushing an ad, not just expecting them to click and go to some defunct website, but really, again, providing them a service that is an immediate response to a very simple need. How to draw a perfect cat eye, how to cover up a blemish before a big meeting or a date. These are things that these devices are actually helping us do. So it seems antithetical to our culture that L'Oréal would be sitting on a mobile panel and talking about devices and applications, but this is the space that we're in. We built Makeup Genius now 2 years ago. It's an augmented reality app that allows women to try on our entire product catalog seamlessly before they buy, so they can have the confidence to explore new looks. They can have the confidence to perfect the look, because education is a big part of what we're also offering. And then they can buy with confidence, knowing that what they're buying is actually what they want, eliminating the waste. So these are a lot of the areas that, as a company and a brand, we're starting to explore new channels as a means to deliver value beyond just buying the product at point of sale.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we'll come back to this theme of value in a few minutes. Vince, what are you seeing in your world?
Well, a bunch of different things. I think one of the biggest things that Getty's launched in the last year or so has been the ability for the public to embed their images on Facebook, on Tumblr, on Pinterest, right? And actually build a collection of their own best curated images, right? And I think that we're really building out the brand in the sense of saying, well, if you really want to make your personal page even better, you can do this by just going through Getty and taking this imagery. And then we're also featuring live photos from the iPhone 6S, so that whole sort of Harry Potter photo where our professional photographers are featuring that. We're shooting 360, right? And so you're having companies actually license virtual reality from us. But the number one thing is the portability, the screen, the fact that we have a great app that people can look at really cool, curated, really well done photos, right? And my best story is one day I was running through the park and I run into the manager of the Foo Fighters, and he goes, "Bannon, stop. He goes, it was me and Dave and the Prince." And I go, "Wait a second. Let's slow down." And he goes, "Yeah, Prince, Harry, and Dave and I were doing a benefit, and there's a picture of me." So I was able to go on the app, pull up the photo, and send it to him, right there and then. And that's totally different from the world of, say, when Getty started 20 years ago, when you probably had to take a transparency, right, and go, "Oh, I'll find it for you." So it's the fact that it is mobile, the fact that this is your messenger, the fact that you can take great photos with it. I mean, yes, our world's completely been...
Excellent. David, tell us about how Sony, what you're seeing in your world.
Yeah, I think, for us, being a smartphone manufacturer, it also helps to have direct access to the screen. And for us, the game changer in this whole move is the fact that we do realize that the new media is smartphone, obviously. That sounds like, pretty obvious. But having access to the screen of the smartphone for us is a huge chance. So what we do see is obviously the fact, first and foremost, that screen is the new mass media. So this is why, obviously, we are investing a lot into new content creation. So that could be normal content from videos to any kind of content, but also co-creation a lot. We'll speak later on about branded content. For us, branded content is absolutely massive. This is where we do work a lot with influencers on the different social networks. That is pretty key for us. The other main lead that we see as well is obviously the opportunity to personalize and to speak in a different way to consumers. So this one-to-one communication is absolutely key for us. That's why we do invest a lot in CRM, mobile CRM, more and more. Some say that email is dead, but obviously email is still here, long live email. But still mobile CRM is here to stay. So we have this, kind of dual opportunity to actually on one side speak to the mass, but also to have those messages actually personalized into targets and or one-to-one messages. That's a huge opportunity.
One of the things that we talked about in some of our earlier calls as we started getting around the topics was this notion of, and I think, Vince, you brought it up, this notion of companies starting to have to choose. I think you gave two quotes. One is, content is the new black. Right? Brands, everyone wants to get into content. But you're seeing companies starting to choose between being content creators and content curators. And I think you talked a bit about Facebook. Can you guys elaborate a little bit about how you guys are thinking about those?
Well, I mean, it's the whole idea that you're able to, as you're saying, like, as you're being in the agency business, how are you going to say your story? How are you going to say your messaging, right? And a lot of things that people want, and it was, Esohe, right, with her products and what they can do and what they, the ability to, literally make somebody like really look better and lift their ego and do great things. It's that messaging that you now have the ability to create, and you have to like sort of grab people in an interesting way that's much different than it's been like saying just simply promoting a product. So you're really using content in this new way to like say, hey, this is who we are, and we're one of the companies that have, like, say, the raw materials of what that content is, right? And then you have the ability to then take that and really do a great job on your messaging. And that's why it's important for our content to feel very real. It's not about all having just models, and this is all on our creative side, right? And having it where, like, we did a whole special thing with Sheryl Sandberg on the Lean In collection, right? Where instead of just showing like a woman with a baby in a briefcase, it was showing women being really, strong and showing them doing like things that all women do, right? Instead of like trying to like stereotype them and put them into a bracket. So I think messaging now has to have a really authentic, original feel to it, and that's really important.
So how's L'Oreal? I mean, L'Oreal has such a rich and strong brand heritage. So this notion of creating your own content, which effectively you've done, both directly and with partners like McCann and others, versus curating content that your customers, your consumers, how are you reacting and dealing with that balance between controlling your brand and the content that represents your brand and curating content that's coming from your customers and consumers?
Right now for L'Oréal Paris, I'd say we're at the precipice of really understanding that we have to start to relinquish control. We have to start to really rely on our advocates, our makeup junkies, our beauty hardcore users, and let them participate in our storytelling. So that creative process can involve UGC, it can involve working with influencers, as someone mentioned earlier, fishing where the fish are, as Alex said, going on these channels, identifying the creme de la creme, and then using them as part of our storytelling process. It doesn't mean that we negate the heritage of great advertising that we've built with partners like McCann, like you said, but it's a new era. It's a whole new era where we're also providing content that also isn't so product-centric. We're talking about lifestyle. Again, the need state around providing a service to someone based on a need that they have. So sometimes it could be something completely not related to the product in terms of lifestyle-oriented content. So this is really where we're starting to see our content strategy shift. Again, really twofold around the balance between working with our agency partners for the right mix of product development content and even some lifestyle, and then working with consumers to directly produce things that really resonate with our younger audiences. So that is really where we're focused, as well as creating content endemic to channels. For so long, we were copying and pasting the TVC onto YouTube or the TVC onto our website. But again, really that bespoke, user-generated content or personalized content, those are all the areas that we're focused on across the org, not even just our brand.
Excellent. David, can you talk a bit about, Sony, obviously, you talked a bit about, branded content and creating experiences. How do you manage that balance between creating your own content that gets distributed through devices and curating content?
So it's a balance. Obviously, being part of the Sony ecosystem, we have access to some, not always for free, but
You have some content in your organization.
Yeah. So we have access to lots of content, but on the other side, we also feel that consumers also want to have access to any kind of content. So we don't actually really specify the content as you would normally do. We are moving to what we call experiences, and experiences can be anything from actually consuming a content, downloading a movie, or actually, participating to a contest to win a ticket to a concert somewhere in the world. So we are moving towards those experiences, and that's basically because also in terms of KPIs, we really actually benchmark all the kind of content that we broadcast on the channels versus engagement versus lifetime value engagement as well. So we do try to have this kind of ROI approach as well in order to make it relevant. Otherwise, we could just broadcast more and more content. So back to what we were saying before as well, it's important to match that against brand preference or brand love, as you were saying before. So that's also the kind of metrics that are very important for us. So it could be anything from any opportunity in terms of content that comes in also is also accepted. So we match that back against the KPIs, basically. And one thing which is also very important brand-wise is that obviously as a brand, as Sony, we do try, of course, to have this branded content, but more and more what we see is that it's actually sometimes much better to bank on co-creation of content, working with influencers that actually, are appropriated to our products and do by themselves create the content with us sometimes as well, but give more power to the users.
Yeah. And Alex, there have been questions coming in about social. So this is where the curated versus content production comes in. And I think CNN has been, in your industry, one of the leaders at getting that balance between involving your audiences and asking them and actively asking for content that you curate versus producing your own. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. There was years ago that we had iReport where we were bringing in reports from around the world. It was arguably one of the first forms of social media. Yeah. And we were getting many of our big stories, first pictures from people in the field. And that, I think, has been kind of core to our DNA, the willingness to expand beyond just our journalists that are in the field. And CNN has more boots on the ground than any other organization in the world for news, but yet you still can't be everywhere all the time. And actually, if you peel back CNN, what's really interesting about that company, and I've been there for about 10 years now, is not only were there the citizen journalists contributing, and not only do we have reporters everywhere, but we have affiliate relationships, thousands of affiliates from around the world, and that really is at the foundation, this willingness to share content and to tell the stories that need to be told. I think we talked a little bit about this, but at its heart, and maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit as far as what I would encourage, but I know for us, we ask ourselves, what are the stories that we need to tell? And then the fun begins with how do we want to tell those stories, right? So it has to start with the journalism, it has to start with the stories, but then from there, it's really bringing technology and storytelling together to create a product. And when those things work, it's magic. When it doesn't work, there's tension, it's kludgy, it doesn't feel natural, but when the product's just right, it kind of melts away, it connects the audience with the content, and it's just you and that story. And for us, we want to use every resource at our fingertips and harness that. And if it means we have to rely on third parties, yes, of course, we'll vet that, we'll disclose that, we'll be very transparent, but to believe that you can do it all is probably wrong.
So I'm going to move on to the next question that we discussed. It's not just the shift in media consumption, consumer behavior that I'm interested in. I'm interested in this device in particular, or whatever device you choose. I'm not pushing one brand over another. What impact has that had on your organization? So for example, a company like McCann, as I said, we've been producing advertising of one form or another for 100 years. The explosion of mobile media consumption has forced us to reevaluate, reinvent, and evolve virtually every process and aspect in our company. Strategically, we think a lot about the customer journey, and we have to understand the role that this device is having at each stage in the customer journey. So from a planning perspective, we have to take account of new data that is constantly coming into us. Creatively, we were talking before, if for no other reason than you've got the YouTube ads that you can dismiss in 2 or 5 seconds, if we don't make a point within 5 seconds, we've lost the audience. We've been unsuccessful. Or then on Facebook with sound off. The majority of videos on Facebook now are being viewed without sound. So that dramatically changes the way we think about our creative product. And then for me, the biggest impact has been from a process. Speed, agility are vital. The need to get ahead of, either produce and seed or react to, and then get in front of content trends on behalf of the clients that we serve. So it's been pretty profound, and I think speed for us has been the biggest and most profound challenge. Esohe, can you talk a bit about the challenges that you have faced within L'Oreal in this world and some of the things that you're looking at? We talked about talent and a whole lot of other things.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head in terms of one of them. It's us either sourcing the right skill sets internally to bring them into the fold, help us then identify the right partners that are scalable, again, not just to work on one brand, that can work across the entire enterprise. It also boils down to us having the right infrastructure in place from an IT perspective. But again, a lot of those things take time. We have our first worldwide chief digital officer, and that's a big part of her charge, making sure that we're set up with the backbone to be able to, again, get into this world of mobile and be agile enough to push the right messaging, build the right services, create the right content with the right collaborators. So are we there yet? No, but we do have a very, very, very strong leadership now in place at the executive level. And within all of these objectives that are across the enterprise, for my brand specifically, we've hired talent, we're working with the right agency partners, and again, this notion of collaboration, because it doesn't happen overnight, absolutely doesn't happen overnight, although we'd like it to. And then coming to, again, summits and conferences like this puts it in perspective. because you see so much, it's sensory overload. Your boss is like, oh, we should do everything. And you're like, okay, calm down. But the reality is it helps us also prioritize where we should place our bets, where that white space is as it pertains to my brand. And then we go, we test, we invest, it doesn't work, we move on. So again, a lot of that is like bringing in this more entrepreneurial mindset to a company that's established in its process and doing the right change management to really be able to be part of this mobile culture and ecosystem and provide value for our customers.
Excellent. David, can you talk a little bit about the impact that this new media consumption world we live in has had on Sony?
Yes, I think I completely agree with what you said, obviously. We have the same issues there.
Yeah.
Additionally to that, I would add a few points. One of them regarding content, which is absolutely crucial, is that we do feel that we need to have legal departments involved even more and more in everything that we do. You know, we are touching into a field here where you have like multiple stakeholders and right holders as well, and that can bring you sometimes in very tricky situations. So in order to proactively manage that, legal and sourcing actually needs to be involved from day one into content negotiation and or creation. That's absolutely a no-brainer for us, and we have tried to implement that internally. Another one as well is really digital is so complex, and as we are saying, like moving so fast on a daily basis, that you need also to have external partners, and agencies are really key for that. Mm-hmm. And a good network of agencies that are absolutely specialists in what they do, from digital marketing to CRM to content creation to managing influencers. You have lots of different specialties that are absolutely key that you can't have in a big corporation like Sony or L'Oreal. Right. So you have to build this network of trust in some way.
Yeah. In particular, this question is probably as much for Esohe and David as it is for Alex or Vince. Esohe, when we were talking before, you talked about love brands. Mm-hmm. And content. And Vince, you were talking, when we were talking earlier, about passion points. And in some ways, Alex, it's the same thing about picking the story, the passion for the story that you want to tell. Mm-hmm. How has that forced, particularly the L'Oreals, well, actually all of you, how has that forced you to rethink about the story that you want to tell, as opposed to strict product benefits or product-first content, right, and moving back into that value exchange? Because there's a great question up here about value exchange that we'll come back to.
I mean, it absolutely forces you to change the way you're telling the story. And the way it makes you change is by how you start the story. And how we're now starting our story is not about us. And that's the history of what we've done. We're a great product development company, and we want to talk about our products. But the new advent that we're in, especially in digital, and Vince hit the nail on the head earlier, it really is about personalization. It's about a relationship. CRM has been said on this stage today. What is that value that we're bringing to them over the lifetime of a relationship? And a relationship involves a tango, a dance, two people talking, a conversation. And that is not, again, endemic to our culture, but it's very much where we are now. We, again, have our leadership putting in all of our goals, and they're forecasted against how we succeed in providing value to the customer. So very simply, the storytelling changes because how you start the story and end the story now is based on the customer, first and foremost.
I would say, one of the I deal with all the social platforms, and specifically with Facebook and Instagram. And one of the senior executives said to me, Vince, we're really good at social. What we're not good at is content. And they want to keep you engaged on those platforms, right? And so it's literally why Zuckerberg is building out more apps, building out bot Instagram, is doing WhatsApp. But in the same respect, he now knows that I got to compete against Netflix, I got to compete against CNN, I got to compete against, or do I partner with them, or do I do? And this is what I would say, and Bobby, you, Alex, say it happened to you, where 5 years ago they were like, oh, you know, we're just going to use your content. We're not going to pay you for it. We don't care, blah, blah, blah. And now they're like, how can we be partners? And I think that every social platform right now really wants to take a significant step up on how great it's going to look, how good the content's going to look. And the thing is, it's here. It's on your screen. And that's like, for everybody here, it's really, you're not going to look at like really stupid stuff all day, right? And I think that's
Well,
why
my kids might.
well, you know, I think it's why like YouTube and a lot of the influencers and MCNs have like taken their content up to a whole other level, right? And it's not, I'll watch, you know, a segment on from the BBC on my phone. It's no big deal. And it's because I want to see it. I want to get the information out of it, and it's going to look great. It looks great here. Looks great on my iPad. Looks great on my laptop. Looks great on my flat screen. And that's the world we're in. And the thing is literally, right, is you can have it point at the various screens, right? But talk to your kids, they don't call this mobile. They just look at it as another screen, as that as a screen, as their iPad as a screen. And that's really like the world that we're going into. We're the ones that are more distinguishing the fact that it's mobile because we can carry it around.
Yeah, I love what you're both saying. I really, and it resonates so deeply. And my feeling is that, and I've said this before, but just that TV is a state of mind, right? It's not a device. It's like, I want to watch TV, and you have to determine whatever device that is, whether it's the closest or the best, or however you want to think about that. So how are we thinking about this with mobile? How does mobile change things substantially, and what are the challenges? I mean, there are two big opportunities that we spend a lot of energy on, that I'm laser focused on, and the team is really thinking about throughout CNN Worldwide. The first is, what does a modern day broadcaster look like, right? So 35 years ago, we put the satellites in the sky and we broadcasted all over the world. Some people remember when the Iraq War, I mean, there were these kind of seismic moments in time where CNN was really the only broadcaster and we could reach everyone. And so when you go to your TV, as best I can tell, 100 out of 100 times it works. You turn on the TV, and if you turn to CNN, we are right there broadcasting. You shouldn't see a frame dropped. But now, we need to be everywhere, right? But everywhere means something different, particularly around live broadcasting and just news and alerting. So the first challenge is, what does a modern day broadcaster look like on multiple different platforms? Some that we own and operate, and many others that we rely on in the ecosystem. We talked a little bit about those third parties like Snapchat and Facebook. So that is a great challenge. It's a lot of fun to think about. The second challenge, and this word's kind of means different things to different people, but what does, for us, what does a more personal CNN look like? And so that can mean a lot of different things. Is it implicit? Is it explicit? Is it on our platform? Is it on someone else's platform? At the end of the day, it has to be native, right? And I'm not talking only about native advertising, native content. The content has to feel like it was created for that platform, on our platform or a different platform. But when I say personal, I mean, we have, like you talked about, David, like we have data points, we know information, and if you disclose it willingly, you know, we owe it to you to intuit what it is that you want or that you should know. And it shouldn't be an algorithm, and it shouldn't all be hand curated. The technology combined with the editorial oversight should be able to deliver the stories that are relevant, like underlined 3 times to you at that moment. And so that is really what mobile gives us, right? Because you're somewhere at some point in time, we may even know what you're doing. We should be able to tell you when you get off the plane in Barcelona that there's an issue with transportation. I'm not sure how else you would know that outside of bumping into somebody or not being able to use the public transportation. So those are, I think, twofold the big things that we're thinking about. A modern day broadcaster and a more personal CNN. What do those look like?
Fantastic. So I'm going to go slightly off piece from what we talked about earlier, because I'm really intrigued by 2 of the questions that are up here. And it's the second and third one are really about money. Actually, there was another one that was earlier about how the citizen, how do you what's in it for the consumer who's contributing content that ultimately helps us, you, make money? Let's talk. I'd like to pick up some of the point about value and how you think about value exchange, and then we can move into maybe some of the ad formats and how mobile is changing the way you think about monetizing your product. David, can you talk a little bit about that phenomenon, about that value exchange with the consumer?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question, actually. The fact that on our side, when we tend to have this one-to-one conversation and we try to engage more with the consumer, what we call lifetime value management, basically, is obviously between the day when you activate your new smartphone until the day you will buy a new one. There's plenty of time, and user will look at the smartphone like almost 50 times a day or even more sometimes now. So how do we use that to actually have this kind of value conversation? It's a give and take of many different things. It could be anything from giving access to tips and services. How do you use more your smartphone? So how do we make you benefit more from your smartphone? And based also on the partners, like we were mentioning, all different content partners, it could be anything from, okay, we are sitting on a lot of data, so we know that you are a sports fan or music fan, so how can we actually monitor and aggregate that content to actually feed that back into you for, making your daily life easier in some way, so, making some steps for you, making your life easier.
I want to address that question because it really resonates with us at Getty Images. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people in the audience may know this, is that we own a platform called Istockphoto. And it started in 2006, and it's user-generated content that's been curated by the actual participants in iStock. And so it's your prosumer, and a lot of it like digital designers that are putting up their own photos. But I'll be on a plane and somebody will say, "You work at Getty Images? You pay for all my photo equipment." And I go, "Really? Good. Yeah, I upload pictures, or, literally we mine Flickr, and we invite Flickr photographers to come aboard and become part of Getty Images." So we've been in this space for a long time where we've been rewarding citizens for literally uploading content and finding a whole other revenue stream from them creating their own sort of business. And it's been one of our best platforms ever as far as iStock, and the Flickr deal has been great. And now at Instagram, we're finding our new photojournalist. So it's a lot. We're really in that space of now looking at all the various ways that we can monetize real, and you say native, content.
Fantastic. So can you talk a little bit about the value exchange? What's in it for the consumer to give you content that you may then choose to monetize?
Yeah, I mean, we're already on Instagram, as a perfect example, starting to work with a lot of different users in terms of, again, those real hardcore beauty junkies, those makeup enthusiasts. And these users are being brought into our content fold, if you will, to help us produce content. So they're being compensated to build the content. And in other cases, the regram or the direct collaboration identifies them on our channel as someone endorsed by L'Oréal Paris as part of our creation process. So that's the first. Additionally, users that we work with, citizens that we work with to help us build UGC, we're also partnering with them to give them exclusives. So it could be exclusive content. In some instances, it could be samples to get first looks so that they can talk about it with their community and give us real-time feedback. So it's almost like they become part of our development community as we're building out our brand story or our product story. And for a lot of people, because we do speak with a lot of our influencers, our bloggers, our advocates, that is priceless for them. To be part of the brand, to have a voice, a seat at the table, and to actually develop. And that's exactly what we're focusing on as we build content, and that transposes into how we build product.
Yeah, fantastic. Alex, can you talk a little bit about this dynamic about how you make money as a company in this new world? Because obviously you built a business on cable. There was a very identifiable revenue stream coming out of that, and now it's kind of blown up a bit for you.
Yeah, well, there are different natural streams of revenue for us, right? There's the affiliate kind of distribution with our providers, so the people who actually carry our signals and broadcast them. And then there's the ad sales piece and how we're monetizing all kinds of different things, whether it be sponsorships or some of the display and video pre-rolls and mid-rolls that we've talked about, some of the classics, but we've looked now into deeper native executions. But when it comes to citizen journalism, you know, our thinking has evolved a lot on this. In general, there's just so much interesting news happening across social media and being published out there that the value proposition is that when CNN says something, you know that there's a certain level of credibility to that. You know that we've vetted it, you know that we've highlighted it, and we also always point to the source. So what we've done really now is less so than always kind of asking people to submit it to us, but we feel incumbent on tracking the news and listening, you know, on all these different platforms, and then doing the work that needs to be done to help you understand whether it's true or not, right? Because it isn't really true until CNN, you know, has confirmed it in a lot of cases. And so that's the value proposition, and that's our promise to the whole audience as well as to the individual who contributed the news report.
Excellent. Great. There's lots more questions coming in. We'll come back to them in a moment. Let's look a little bit into the future. I personally, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I wasn't excited about change and about how I help both my organization and our clients adapt to this new world. What opportunities do you see coming up? I'm not a big believer in crystal balls that go beyond 12, 18 months because the world is changing so rapidly. So let's keep our focus, our time frame within the next 12, maybe 24 months. What opportunities are really exciting you now? Vince?
I would say that you're going to see a very consumer-facing Getty. I think you're going to see a lot more of us being branded and being out there, and I could see us like partnering, maybe even a series with CNN or other people or other brands, right? I could see that Getty would be out there literally, you know, say helping the citizen journalist, right? Or literally going out there and doing things that would be part of all the social, you know, networks as far as like special kinds of programming or certain types of imagery. And then obviously 360 is really one of the big things that we're looking at growing. I'm going to do one little thing that I would say that everybody here can get for free. If you have an iPad or any Apple device, we do this thing called the Year in Focus, which is our best photography of the last year. And it combines all our products, which is video, stills, audio, and it is this living book. And the brilliance of this book this year, it features what's going on with the entire, like, say, refugee and Syrian crisis. And it ends up at Memorial, the Bataclan, right? You know, and it's a 360 of that whole image of what happened in Paris. And this to me is like, it's so interactive, it's so beautiful that it's, you know, can work on your phone, can work on your iPad, on whatever. This to me is like where I see Getty going to. And I see it going with great brands, great partners, and I would say this will be our biggest growth.
Fantastic. David, what's exciting you in the next 2 years?
I would say that even less than 2 years. In the next 6 to 12 months, what we're trying to do is grab the opportunity, and one is absolutely critical, is how do we actually grab the one-to-one opportunity. So we're having in our hands this smartphone, which is a mass media that can be personalized. So how do we grab more of this opportunity to speak to our users during their life cycle and distribute rewards and make their life easier? So sitting on a lot of data, how can we make that happen on a daily basis is a crucial opportunity for us. Another one is a bit different, is more the challenge that we're facing with other, medias like Facebook, for instance, or Instagram. And as a brand, obviously, when you now are posting content, branded content on those channels, you have less and less organic reach, which is now down to 0.5%, I think, down from maybe 40% a few years ago. So on our side is how do we actually use, in a better way, those channels to, as a love brand, grab the users into our own channels so that we can have this one-to-one conversation. That's a massive challenge/opportunity for us.
Fantastic. Esohe?
I agree. It's definitely less than 2 years, according to my boss. But one of the things that we're most actively pursuing is the digitalization of the store experience and what that looks like and how brands like ours can contribute to that, evolve it, and really make it as spectacular as possible. We are looking at many different distribution channels, working with partners, but what that experience is for the consumer when they walk into the store based on mobile, when they're at shelf, when they're checking out, and how our brand can help improve that. That's definitely an area. Content is going to continue to evolve. The players, the partners we work with, the Snapchats, the Instagrams, new players that will surface daily. We're definitely excited about that. And then along the lines of everything that we've seen here, the world of AR is something that we're definitely staying the course on. It's been a game changer for makeup as a category, and we're going to continue to evolve it across other categories. VR is something that, you cannot miss it here. Everyone has a VR device, 360 as part of our content storytelling experience. All of these things are opportunities for us as a brand to test and invest and learn, and then again, continue to push out if they work, monetize them. There's some questions about lifestyle content versus product-centric. And for us, the value of building your brand is just as important to be able to walk into a boardroom and say, here's my ROI. And that is what building a love brand means. And that's where our area of focus is for the next 2 years. Build the love brand, build the connection, and all of these levers that we're going to use to drive that will empower it. But that's the answer to that question, whoever asked. That's one of my favorite questions because we do get asked it a lot by our agency partners as well. But that's our area of focus. Build the love brand and test and invest.
Fantastic. Alex, you talked a bit about what it means to be a broadcaster. You talk about personalization, or what your personal CNN means. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what's exciting you? Is there anything beyond that or an extension of those two things that's really exciting you over the next 2 years?
There's no shortage, definitely. I'm just thinking back. I was trying to think about where to begin. We talked a little bit about mobile. I think it's important to recognize even some of the technology behind mobile, which is that there's a certain expectation that the information be instantaneous, and that's why I think you're seeing these ecosystems like Snapchat or Instant Articles, and now with Google AMP. These are really important technologies that will help bring the stories quickly to users. So I love the idea that it really will be at your fingertips, the news. So if we can get you the story we want to tell, and we want to tell it in a certain way, we still have to deliver it quickly, and there's that latency that we need to get over. And that's on mobile, and that's particularly on video. So the video storytelling we're doing, I think, is really exciting. We have Digital Studios, which has done so much original programming. If you haven't seen it, you should look, excuse me, at our websites and apps at the Digital Studios work. And I love the idea of that starting really quickly and available because CNN is kind of a video legacy company and getting that out there. Globally, we're taking every single brand that we have and looking at whether it has that proper footprint and what it looks like across the globe as opposed to being US-centric in some cases or internationally centric in another. So I think those are some of the things that the last thing I would just say is that we are doing a lot of experimentation around wearables. We are doing a lot around VR. And I'm personally kind of energized about chatbots, about conversational and voice recognition. I think more and more you're going to go somewhere, you're going to say something to an inanimate object, and you're going to expect it to give you a response back. And news can be really, really exciting in that way and can really contextualize and be relevant at that moment.
Excellent. We've got about 2 minutes left. Before I get to the last question, which is a few words of advice to the audience in this mobile-first world, I have to address the second question here, particularly Vince and Alex. What will separate amateur content from professional content? You know, we were talking before about Netflix and producing their own content, this professional-grade content. Can you guys elaborate a little bit more on what will separate the two? Because I think it's a great question.
Well, it's really simple, right? You know, you see something that's brilliant, that's great, like running around in Barcelona. Literally, I run here, and you see this great art that's out there, and you go, oh my God, this is fantastic, right? And then you see like a bunch of buildings with like some terrible, you know, spray paint all over it. It's really simple. You'll know great art when you see it. And you'll see things like what, like say an artist like Daft Punk, what they do, right? And you go like, the music's great, the visuals are great. This is really, really been worked on and really great content. When you see an in-depth piece, right, that's done on a great story on what's going around in the globe, right? You know, you're seeing this stuff right now, and you realize immediately that this separates, you know, a great shot, there's nothing like a great sports shot, you know, when you see somebody who makes a great kick or a great score or skiing or whatever. So you know that, you know instantly, you go, that shit, that's awesome.
Awesome. Alex, very quickly, we got 23 seconds. Anything you want to add on the amateur versus professional? Because that's kind of the heart of your business.
Yeah. No, I don't think I'll add anything. I think Vince nailed it. I think you really did. And you have captured the authenticity and spirit of it too, and that's what we want.
In the spirit of giving piece of advice, I'm going to limit you guys to less than 5 words. What advice would you give the audience in this mobile-first world? I'll start off. For me, speed, agility are everything. David?
Yeah, speed, flexibility, adaptability. Focus is key as well. I mean, we're speaking about VR, but that's the big thing for maybe in the next 5 years, but not before that. So focus first on what is like the next one, next revolution.
Okay. Excellent. Esohe?
I'd say test and learn. Don't be afraid. Test, it doesn't work, move on. And that speaks to agility as well, being agile, flexible.
Excellent.
Go forward. Just always go forward. Change is going to happen, embrace it.
I would say contextualize, relevance, surprise, and delight.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thanks for entertaining us the last panel of the day. And we'll hand over back to the hosts.
Thanks.
Thank you.
By the way, guys, excuse me. I have to do this. My kids don't believe that I do what I do. I got to take a selfie with this amazing panel. That's right. So I have to. I'm sorry. Humor me for just 1 second, guys.
Okay.
Because otherwise, they don't believe that I'm actually here in Barcelona away from them without doing it. Thanks, guys.